Metallica are the largest heavy metal band ever to come out of the United States, having sold over 85 million albums and toured the globe on countless occasions. Starting with the infamous lineup of Lars Ulrich on drums, James Hetfield on guitar, Dave Mustaine on lead guitar and Ron McGovney on bass, Metallica were destined for stardom right from the start. But where did this awesome group come from? This is the story of a drummer, a singer, 2 lead guitarists and 4 bass players who set out to change music forever.
What we were very influenced by, which is called the new wave of British heavy metal, was sort of hard rock and metal's direct answer to that movement a few years ago, where metal sort of was brought back down to, you know, from the 70s, you had all the dinosaur bands and everything was sort of very grand and rock stars and all that. And then in 1979-80, the new wave of British metal came about and sort of everything was brought back down to the streets again, and bands were doing their own thing and a little more aggressive and maybe a little faster and just a little more sort of ballsy and gutsy. And I think that's where most of our influences lie.
With the lack of media around the metal scene, Ron Quintana started up Metal Mania magazine. He remembers discussing with Lars some possible titles.
Me and Lars I was doing a magazine and laying out names, and Lars actually had a bunch of names. He was going to name his band like Red Vet, Blitz crap or something. He had the worst, most generic, Americanized like car names and the hot rod names, Trans Am names, and I had a list of names like Metal Death, Skull Orchard, and Metallica was in there. And he goes, oh, that's a cool name. What are you going to call your magazine? How about Metal Mania? That was one on my list, and so I ended up doing Metal Mania in '81, and a few months later I heard about this band Metallica. So I thought that was pretty funny.
As the night progressed, Dave started becoming more rambunctious. I turned around and I went to leave, and Dave like put his arm around me again, and all of a sudden I feel this like pinching in the back of my neck, and he had bit me on the back of my neck.
And that's when it was looking like the end of Dave's days, not to us, but amongst the band. And so they asked Exodus's manager to become their manager. And at that party, Exodus came up to me and asked me to replace their manager.
Harold O was the band's official photographer. After photo shoots with the band, he would often invite them over to his house to check out the images. James Hetfield, however, was not always impressed with the results.
Well, I had a keg party at my house a long time ago, and James showed up after the gig, and I showed him one of the pictures that we had that I had taken of them goofing around, and a friend of mine, Ron Quintana, he had put it on the cover of his magazine, Metal Mania. It was a picture of James and Kirk in bed together, and they had put El Duce from the Mentors, which is this horribly fat, ugly, round guy that everybody used to get a kick out of. But they had gone and used that as the cover of the magazine, and James hadn't seen it before. And I didn't realize at the time they wanted me to keep those pictures kind of to myself. It was like a private fun kind of thing. So I showed the magazine to James, and he had a big smile on his face. He thought it was great, and then all of a sudden he realized that what the picture was of, and he kicked me in the stomach, and we almost got in a brawl, and he said I was never taking photos for them again after that. But once the alcohol wore off and we started talking about it, it was all cool. But basically, Ron Quintana had gone ahead and used this picture without me knowing.
The one thing that I remember the most, we were doing a practice with this band Warning I was in at the time, and they showed up and Dave just threw the garage door open and just blew in, you know, like a ton of bricks, and he's like, "Let's jam now." And we had been done for like an hour or so, and there's no way we could have done that without, you know, having the cops come and everything. and he was just very, very insistent on doing it, and we did like one song, and sure enough, cops came. So, you know, Dave usually got what he wanted, you know, regardless of what the consequences were.
For years, I've been trying to get Kirk to do a formal interview on camera for a reality check, and he was always kind of ducking me. Well, you know, and that time's not right, this and that, you know, but I'll do one. I promise I will do one. And I finally corralled him at the BAMI Awards, which is California Music Awards, and that's basically a regional thing, California. And Metallica had won some awards, and he was a presenter. And so I saw him, I said, so we're finally going to do that interview you've been promising me? And he goes, you know what, absolutely, we're going to do it tonight. I said, great. So he had a handler guy, you know, was press guy, and he was, the press guy is trying to corral him over to either MTV or VH1 who were waiting to do an interview. And he was ignoring me completely. And Kirk, you know, was talking to different people and so on and so forth, and the guy was grabbing him by the elbow and says, come on over here, VH1's waiting. And he goes, no, wait just a second. This guy over here, I'm doing an interview with him. He goes, but VH1, they're waiting. And he's like, they let him wait. I promised this guy an interview for a long time. He's a friend of mine. I'm doing the interview with him first.
Yep. How are you, bro?
Good, how you been, man?
Finally to have Kirk on Reality Check.
It's been years.
It's been days and days and days.
How you feeling?
Feeling good. I stopped drinking.
You really? You were on the wagon?
I'm on the wagon and my nerves are shot, but other than that, you know.
This is a memorial for Cliff Burton in Marshall School. Some friends of his put this here for him, and this is the only memorial they have anywhere for him. It's in a really well secluded area here, and it's pretty much the closest thing to a memorial that Cliff has anywhere. So his mom taught here at school. This is Marshall Middle School, and it's just like a tribute to him, and pretty much the biggest guy to ever come out of Castro Valley.
Word got around and they were doing auditions, and one thing led to the next, and went and played. You know, there's 50 other guys trying out for the gig or whatever, and it just happened. You know, once I had the opportunity, that was that. It had to be me.
Their new bass player spent a long time living in the shadows of Cliff Burton. But over time, both the band and the fans began to accept him.
I don't know if there would have been a good time or a bad time. The thing is that the ugly fate that brought it around was not a good foot to get off on. And so I had to battle for years before I got the respect at all, to start from there. You know what I mean? It was really like quite huge shoes to fill, not just in the playing aspect, but in the way that there was a lot expected of me, and it was a constant barrage of tests.
Up through the 80s, we wrote a record every year and a half to 2 years, and then we wrote the Black Album in 1990, and then we went on a tour that never ended. So by the time we got back to writing again in the fall of '94, it was close to 4.5, 5 years.
It just goes back to the fact that you just can't please everyone. You just have to follow your instincts and follow what satisfies you creatively.
And Lars told me, you know, the reason they kept going out when they didn't have a new album was just to keep their fans fresh, you know, to keep them, you know, where they're interested, or, you know, don't wander off with all these new bands. And they've always kept that, you know, theory of just keeping their fans with them, and I think their fans are going to be strong as ever.
Metallica have had a number of accidents while touring. During these times, they've had to rely on Kirk Hammett's guitar tech, John Marshall, to fill in on a number of occasions.
Hetfield in particular, you know, I remember seeing him when the first time he broke his wrist in a skateboarding accident. That was like, you know, during the Master of Puppets tour, when they had to have a roadie fill in.
You know, John Marshall, who was Kirk's guitar tech, who was a great guitar player, was right there. And, you know, they just, I don't know how that worked out because they were on the road, but they asked him to fill in and play the guitar parts, the rhythm parts. And I guess that worked out pretty good. I think he was a little more behind the scenes that time, the first time. When James got burned, John was able to come out and play.